Hi, David F&B Railroad bringing you update number 39, where I'm going to try to put together this Block Animator 2 by Logic Rails, hashtag no sponsor, and these Just Plug Nano Lights from Woodland Scenics, hashtag no sponsor. I'm going to try and put these together to make them work, to make a occupancy light for the layout. So let's see if I can do it. So as I said in my video, Amherst and Christmas haul, I had bought this Block Animator 2 and I'm using these nano LED lights. And the first thing I got to do is figure out what's positive and what's negative on the lights so that they can be hooked up to the animator, and hopefully I can hook these up and make them work. So this is the nano plug and play, and as you can see, these lights, the connector here can only go in one direction. So one of these is positive and the other one's negative. So we're going to pull this heat shrink off of here and find out what's positive and what's negative. All right. So inside that heat shrink is a circuit board and a resistor. And I don't know if you guys can see this. Let me zoom in. Okay. So right here, it says positive. So we know the gray wire is now the positive on these LED lights. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put heat shrink back over this, and I'm going to cut this so I can extend my wires to hook it up to the detector. So I have a piece of heat shrink tubing, and we're just going to slide that right down over the resistor. In there, like it was never even touched. And just to make sure everything's working right, I have a light hub. We can power it up, and we'll just plug this in. And yes, it is still working. So now what I got to do is cut off these wires and solder wires on long enough to reach the detector where it's going to go. Okay, now what I'm going to do next is going to scare some people, but off with the end. I don't need it. I got to lengthen these wires so they'll reach, and so I can hook them up to the block detector. So those are stripped back. Now we got to remember our gray wire is positive. So I'm going to put a red wire to the gray wire and a black wire to the black wire. Shrink wrapped, insulated, and I got my two wires hooked up to the unit. Now that I have extended wires, I'm just gonna check this again, and what this is a plug off of one of the lights. I originally was trying to solder unsolder and resolder the wires from the board, and I actually screwed up a light. So I would suggest not doing that. I would suggest doing what I'm doing, which is cutting off the end and adding length to it. But seeing that I did do that, I got this one plugged, so I'm able to test the lights and make sure they work. And what I would suggest is maybe getting a cheap cord, extension cord or something for this system, and cutting that and using that as a test plug. So what I have here is the plug, and I've hooked my red wire to the gray and my black wire to the black. And here's our light, and this is all powered up, so we'll just plug this in. If I can get it the right way. Oh, I see. There we go. Plug it in, and our light is working. So now I have the two ends. I will probably tin these ends, and then they're ready to be used on the electronics to plug into the negative and positive as necessary to light up the light. Now the next thing I got to do is I got to build a holder for these nano lights to put on the buildings. So to make the holders for the lights, I used Evergreen's Scale Models plastic, item number 148, 40 by 188 strip, which is this piece right here. And then I used this tubing, which is number 225, 5/32 tube. And all I did was take my tube and cut it on an angle. So that's a 45. Just put it in and cut it on an angle. The next step is to cut it straight, but I don't want to cut this off so I have a full circle. I want to cut this off so that you get this much of the circle, as you can see here in these pieces. See, they're not quite full circles. There's a little opening at the bottom, and that's what I want to do here. So I don't think you're going to be able to see this all that well. Maybe if I put it out at this side. There you go. So when I put this in here, I'm not going to cut it so I get a full circle. I'm going to step it back just a little bit. And you can see that's not a full circle. That's what I wanted. And I made a bunch of those and glued them onto the strip. Now the next thing I need to do is I need to put a hole in here for the light to come through. And what I did is I got a very small drill bit, and I just pick out the center and I drill a hole. Once that hole was drilled, then I come in with a bigger drill bit, pick up that hole, and just go through with the bigger drill bit. So now we have a hole. But the problem we have is the nano is actually on a circuit board. So in order for this to fit through here, we gotta elongate the hole. So I take my X-Acto knife, model knife here, and I trim out the ends, turning the hole into an oval. And just that little bit allows me to slide that nano through. And then we have the nano in the little hood. So that's what I did there. The next thing I did was put aluminum foil inside the hood. I don't know if you can see that. There we go. So there's aluminum foil in here and there's none in here. Because what I found is the lights are so bright, and seeing that I'm facing them up, they would shine through the hood. So there it is. And there's a little bit on the flat part of the base, but I don't care. I'll go back in and trim off what I have to with the X-Acto knife. And then the next thing to do is to clean it up. I end up cutting these off close to either side and then painting them and gluing them onto the structure. So here you can see I've got the hoods attached to the building and I've painted them a flat black. So now I'm adding some water to do some aging or rusting to the hoods. And what I'm using is a dark rust. And I've put the water on to get it to flow. It's got a little flow agent in the water. And then I'm going to just dab on a little bit of that dark rust. And now that that is done, I'll just let that dry, and then I'll come back with some more water and a different color rust. Now this is a light rust that I'll use just to add a little bit of light rust on the hoods as well. So now that the light emitter and the light receiver are in, what I like to do is I'm going to put some matte medium around it and set it into the hole to help hold it in place. Gotta bring these down so that they're even with the top of the ties. Now I'm just going to take a little matte medium. Just wick it in around the receiver and the emitter. And we'll let that dry. So what I've done here is I've mounted the electronics, the Block Animator 2 from Logic Rail Technologies to a piece of 1/2-inch plywood, and I feel there should be air underneath it. So my screws, I put some plastic tubing underneath, cut 4 pieces the same length, and then my screws weren't a flat round-headed screw, they were a taper on the underside of them. So I cut a piece of plastic and put that underneath so not to damage the board, and this will get mounted up underneath the layout in a central location between my coal mine and my power plant. This way I can run the wires to it and get it all set up. So let me get that hooked up and I'll show you how it works. So here's the building. You can see the lights are right there at the end of the building. And when I turn the power on, they should both go green. Now that that's done, I will show you how they are working by bringing in a string of cars. And what you will see is when the car gets over the infrared sensors, the light will turn red, which should be right now. And then when I pull it out, it'll stay red for a little while, but I'll switch it over to the other track. And you'll see it'll switch from red to green because there's nothing on the track to occupy the space. So the light is turned back to green. And now we're going to occupy the space with these other cars. And there it is, it's red, it's over the sensor. And that's the way those lights are working and how they're going to look. So that's the way they're looking. I have not put the rest of the building or anything up behind it yet because I have a lot more to do in the area, but I just wanted to show you how those lights are working out for that one spot. And then when I do get the sensors in at the other end where the power plant is, there'll be a sensor on that end. So if either one of those sensors is tripped, the light will be red. And that's the way it's going to work. Okay, that's that. You saw that they went together. I managed to make them work. I had a little snafu. I burnt up one LED nano, but live and learn. At least you guys now know what's negative and what's positive on the Just Plug light system. And you can see they were working. I have block detection. I can now tell what rail is being occupied so I don't run cars into cars for no reason. So all in all, it worked out good. I'm happy with it. I'll be happier when I get it all put together, wires neatened up, and it all working on both buildings. But all in all, I'm happy. And I appreciate you guys watching. Thank you so very much. I like the thumbs up. Share it with your friends. You know, leave a comment. Comments are always good. Sometimes they're helpful. And what can I say but thank you. Thank you very much. And as always, keep on modeling.